Welcome everyone to this CEBRI event that is focusing now on our cycle of discussions about the BRICS. I am Larissa Varros, and I'm a senior fellow at the Brazilian Center for International Relations, CEBRI. I am today speaking from Brasilia, Brazil, and I welcome you all who are joining us on this panel discussion today that is focusing on the recent BRICS summit meeting that took place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and also is looking ahead to the COP30 event, which will be held in Belém, the state of Pará in Brazil, at the end of this year. So there is this this very special year for Brazil in which we're hosting both the BRICS summit as well as the COP30 meeting, and actually just coming from Brazil hosting the G20 meeting in November last year. So a lot of important international events taking place in Brazil within a couple of months, which of course poses a lot of challenges, but also presents the opportunity for Brazil and BRICS countries to demonstrate some of the ideas and share some of the values they would like to see going ahead for COP30 and all that concerns climate change, mitigation, and adaptation efforts. Today, I'm very happy to have you all here, and I have to especially thank our sponsor here, represented by Henrique Paiva. Siemens has been a very important partner to this project, and we were very happy and honored to count on your support. And I think that's also a very important demonstration on how different stakeholders, think tanks and companies can work together to promote topics that are important for policymakers, but society as a whole. So thank you, Henrique, for being such a supportive partner to all of us in these initiatives. This is our third event together, and we're very happy to be able to have arrived to this point with this level of high-level engagement from our partner think tanks, and also having in different events the opportunity to engage with government officials and policymakers that also share their time and knowledge with us to help us better understand what can be expected from these different events and how we can better collaborate. So this is also the case for today. As you will see, we have a very diverse panel of think tanks and government officials from Brazil, and we will definitely, I'm sure that we will learn a lot from that. Henrique, I'll give now the floor to you so you can make your opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. Thank you, all colleagues that joined. I may say that Siemens Energy is very happy to all the events that we started to do in the first webinar, later the event itself, and now having this final webinar. I think we achieved what we wanted. And as a global company, what we were looking for was really to understand better from experts what is the view and the understanding of this expanded BRICS and what does it mean in terms of like business. And if we, as a global company, as we are present in more than 100 countries, if we are having the right strategy for taking the advantage of making business in this platform, and or if we should more. Some things that I learned with all the experts that CEBRI was able to get together. First one, I was very happy in the end that uh, uh, one of the main takeaways was the reinforcement of the climate agenda. Uh, Sorry, am I here?
Yes.
Uh, Something happened in my computer. Sorry on that. Uh, uh, I was saying, okay, I got it. That I was very happy to see that there was an agreement on the understanding of the global south and its protagonists to change climate change in the world. I think we could see this on the very end in declaration on the BRICS as well. Also, we do have some very nice achievements already, as the new development bank, as some activities done together on the health sector. But definitely, what I learned is that BRICS has much more potential to do to what has done so far. And even I learned this for my company as well. And I think even though with this expanded BRICS now, what we are getting together is to understand how to institutionalize this with such a different energy or social profiles with the countries that join the BRICS expanded now. But I'm really looking forward, I can say I'm just thank you again to all the CEBRI group and CEBRI staff that were very helpful and make this happy. We are very happy to the discussions and to what we learned. Uh, Something that we already joined is that the business council, the BRICS Business Council, already created a sustainable development network. We already joined this as Siemens Energy. So I hope other companies also join this, and really looking forward to see what you guys bring to us. So from this, I pass the ball to Larissa. Thank you again, Larissa. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. I should have said that Henrique Paiva is the Director of Government Affairs and Sustainability at Siemens, Latin America, Siemens Energy. So although I'm late, I'll say that now, just for the records.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I could say that, but I didn't as well. So thank
No
you.
problem. So we'll now get started with our panel, and I will invite our guests. And before I give each of them the screen, I will also make a quick introduction about each of them. And in this first round of conversation, I'll basically ask our panelists about their unique views and perspectives from the positions, the institutions, and the locations where they are based and they come from. What is their understanding about the results of the BRICS summit, what are the main ideas and comments they would like to share. So I'll start with Mrs. Manat Jospal. She is the Director and Fellow for Climate and Energy at OIF, an Indian think tank, and she is responsible for OIF in the Middle East. So she's actually based in Dubai. And Manat Jospal has a very a background that is very much dedicated to geopolitics, geoeconomics, climate and energy policy. She has expertise in climate finance, transition finance, carbon markets, and just energy transition. So she's very much into all the topics that we are very interested on today. And we are very happy to have you here with us, Manas. So the screen is yours, and you have about 7 to 10 minutes to develop your main ideas about the Rio Declaration and the results of the BRICS Summit.
Great. Thank you, Larissa, for like a very, very warm welcome. And I was in your beautiful country a few weeks ago, so it was a delight to be there. I'm going to keep my, I think, comments a little brief because I'm very interested to sort of, hear what my very esteemed colleagues also have here to say. But I think if I were to start with broadly what the Rio Declaration meant for India specifically, I think a couple of pointers there. And because I work on climate and energy, I think my focus will primarily be on that. BRICS has a much broader ambit and scope as well. I think one, the fact that there was a great focus on strengthening global South cooperation. Naturally, BRICS is a global South bloc. But the fact that they reiterated that and that kind of presence and sort of alignment with the COP certainly helps bring out certain elements of, say, just transitions, which are very important to countries like India as well as Brazil, but also South Africa, where all these countries and also the expanded BRICS countries where we are still very dependent on fossil fuels for our energy supply and energy needs. The element of just and inclusive transition or a very just phase out of fossil fuels or a more inclusive approach to it becomes extremely crucial and important. So I think this whole Global South Cooperation Declaration and the emphasis on that was extremely key to building a foundation on that. I think the second bit I want to highlight maybe is on finance. Now, naturally, at the COP as well, we had the Baku to Belém roadmap where we have committed, where the roadmap does say that there will be a commitment to mobilize 1.3 trillion USD for the developing countries. The BRICS bloc acknowledges that roadmap and hopes to align itself with that roadmap as well going forward. So I think that kind of alignment between the COP and the BRICS process is also extremely crucial because it makes sure they're not both working in silos. There is an alignment in terms of the approach, so they can naturally all the BRICS countries are part of the COP processes as well. So the mandates are well aligned to be able to strengthen some of those efforts in that direction. So I think the fact that the climate finance was a very important part of what was discussed and deliberated, and an emphasis at in the declaration and in the summit was very welcomed. Also, I think within climate finance, I think one of the most important endorsements from Brazil was the Tropical Forest Forever facility. Now, for all global South countries, looking at carbon markets, especially at a geopolitical time when CBAM has become so, concerning, the role of carbon markets are only going to, in many ways, enhance in many parts of these countries. And particularly when you look at voluntary carbon markets with CDM, which now is more the Article 6.4 of the Paris Agreement, there is a lot of push for voluntary carbon markets and to look at compliance markets as well to be able to generate credits for developing countries for maintaining and preserving the forest cover. So I think the Tropical Forest Forever facility is again a landmark push by Brazil, and countries like India, like China, like UAE have expressed in contributing and participating in this facility as well. I believe there is some conversation on creating a fund around it as well, but that's I believe at a very nascent and a superficial point at this level, at this juncture. So I think the conversation on climate finance and forest conservation was also crucial. I think the third bit that I want to highlight is reform of the global institutions and multilateralism. So there is a lot of focus that was given on, firstly, the NBD. So NBD expansion and government reforms were a big focus of the declaration as well, particularly with the appointment of the President Dilma Rousseff. And also the fact that I believe, I was just looking at the stats, I think almost there is a commitment that by 2026, 40% of the investment portfolio of the NDB will be allocated to sustainable projects. So there has been a commitment to sort of enhance NBD portfolio investments towards sustainable, greener, just matrices and frameworks, and making that an important ambit and part of NBD investments. And also encouraging more governance reforms so that, the expansion can be well managed. There is also within the NBD bracket and financial reform, there are also initiatives on local currency settlements, PPP infrastructure financing, the BRICS interbank cooperation mechanism. So a lot of work in terms of financial architecture coordination is also was part of the summit and were part of the conversations in the lead up to the summit, at least. The other bit, I think, would also be interesting from an India perspective, that India would like to perhaps, take forward and create momentum on some of these things. Now, for example, on the finance bit, while the endorsement has been quite strong and there have been set targets, but we don't know where the funding is coming for this target, right? And so far as we've noticed, the focus has been always on relying on the developed countries for providing that 1.3 trillion. But I think with the BRICS summit as well, there is a lot of focus on trying to mobilize capital within the BRICS countries for investment in green and energy-based projects. So more DRM, which is domestic resource mobilization, will be extremely important and crucial in this regard, which is not to take away that the developed countries, in line with the principle of common but differentiated responsibility, are eligible to be funding and financing a lot of these projects. But I think the BRICS is really pushing for more DRM as well, which works in parallel to the COP processes of CDRI. I think also in terms of India, again, there's a huge push for the TFF, which is the Tropical Forest Finance Facility. India wants to sort of push for this and maybe create more biodiversity reserves and create more opportunities for being able to capitalize and generate more revenue through these programs. So there's definitely going to be a continuity there as well. Also, the BMG, which was the BRICS multilateral guarantee, which sort of in many ways mirrors the MEGA of the World Bank, is again a great way to sort of de-risk a lot of the investments, because the NBD as a whole, as a bank, has a better credit rating than its member countries. So if, through the BMG mechanism, it can help de-risk some of these investments, that would be certainly helpful in channelizing a lot of the finance in these developing countries, which struggle and often have to pay a premium on their investments. Also, I think, I've covered the energy transition and the inclusive transition aspect, which there'll definitely be continuity on that for India, on climate finance, creating a fund, on the TFFF, on BMG. So I think there is definitely a lot of parallels that India wants to sort of push for, and there will be that continuity in BRICS. And also India is pushing for hosting the COP as well 2 years from now at COP32 or COP33, I believe, in 2028. If I'm not mistaken. So there is definitely, I'm sure India will be mindful of trying to align, just the way BRICS had to do this year, align their BRICS mandate in certain aspects with, the COP processes as well. India will also be cognizant of that, because it does hope and aspire to host the COP 2 years from now. So there will certainly be some convergences there too. So I'll stop here for now, but yeah.
Thank you, Manat. Lots of interesting perspectives and information on your side. Thank you very much for making this link to what we can expect from the BRICS, the India presidency of the BRICS for 2026. Very, very interesting to hear all that. So now I will invite Mr. Mohammed Al-Darmaki. He is the economic researcher at the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research. Mohammed Al-Darmaki is focusing on economic research, specializing in international economic policy, development, finance, and global trade dynamics, which means that he's also very much into the topics that we will be discussing today. So Mohammed, thank you, welcome, and please share with us your initial comments about the Rio Declaration and the BRICS Summit.
First, I'd like to thank Larissa for the introduction, and also CEBRI for hosting such an important dialogue. I'm honored to join this important dialogue today, reflecting on the outcomes of the Rio Summit and what lies ahead for BRICS. especially with the Global South and Brazil hosting COP30 too. It creates an important standpoint point, like where there is a merging of BRICS strategies with COP strategies, which are really important for Global South countries because they're the most affected by climate change and with the most need for climate financing and sustainable development. First, I'd like to start with a personal note, as I've been a part of the BRICS think tanks meeting this year in Brasilia. It was an honor. Brazil is a beautiful country. The people there are beautiful and welcoming. But that also creates like an understanding for all member countries in BRICS, where you get to know the culture of each country, as I was also part of the Russian meetings the year before. So it gives you a perspective or introspective of how the different countries' cultures are, people, and that builds up better areas for you to research and understand how BRICS members coming from different backgrounds can be integrated and cooperate on such matters. As an economic researcher from the United Arab Emirates and from the ECSSR, I approach this discussion through the lens of inclusive development, climate finance, and pragmatic cooperation. Of course, the UAE ascension to BRICS Plus in 2024 was not a pivot away from other partnerships. It was a natural extension of our broader commitment to multilateralism, South-South engagement, and economic transformation. We have also signed 29 CEPAs with different countries, including Indonesia, India, Turkey, most recently also South Korea, which shows the UAE's vision to help create a multilateral and more cooperative world, especially with the ongoing economic situation. Regarding the Rio Declaration, in many ways, it was a watershed moment. It marked a turning point where BRICS evolved from a diplomatic coalition where there is more just discussion-based analysis into a more structured platform for economic governance and climate leadership. We saw initiatives and strategies that can be built on in the future. Three things we saw clearly was a strong call to reform global financial governance, including changes to the IMF quotas and more equitable voice for developing countries. And we can see this reform also happening in these global institutions themselves. So they realize that there is a need for update, there is a need for new strategies and new trajectories for the global institutions to keep track of the current economic changes and the rising developing countries. We also saw the strengthening of development-oriented financial mechanisms, like the new development bank, with new tools, including the guarantee facility to mobilize private capital, as Manat mentioned. And crucially, the launch of the Baku to Belém roadmap, a structured pathway to raise up to 1.3 trillion per year by 2035, which is important because there is a huge financial and investment gap in sustainable development, which is estimated to be around, the gap is estimated to be around 1.8 trillion by the global institutions. For the UAE, this direction aligns with our long-held belief that development finance must be fair, scalable, and inclusive, and it must come with implementation and not just declaration. We can see, like throughout BRICS, the rise in trade. So I want to talk about trade a bit through BRICS. So the economic momentum within BRICS and BRICS Plus now is significant. The trade in 2022, the trade in BRICS countries stood at $615 billion. By 2024, that rose to $675 billion. And since 2008, there was a steady rate of growth between BRICS members around 9%, which is higher than the global trade average. With the inclusion of BRICS Plus members, intra-trade between BRICS Plus is reaching almost 100, the mark point of $1 trillion, which is a really important mark point. So like we can see bilateral trade between countries increasing through dialogue, through cooperation. This reflects more than commercial exchange. It reflects deeper integration of supply chains, financial systems, strategic priorities among global South nations, which is a really important direction that needs to be implemented more. And hopefully we'll see a significant growth disregarding the current trade situation all around the world and the current outlooks that trade will be decreased, but through building resilient supply chains and trade routes, that can be overcome. It reflects the rise of new development compacts, one that is no longer geographically fragmented, but globally interlinked, as BRICS members are now all throughout the world, and that creates an opportunity. I think one important note that needs to be mentioned is climate finance. Climate finance is a central theme of the Rio Declaration, and rightly so. As I said, there is a need of around 1.8 trillion annually. The global south, meanwhile, just receives a fraction of that, practically for adaptation, where the gap is nearly $360 billion. Because most of the financing and investment right now is going to mitigation. Mitigation is important, but supplying more investments into adaptations allow the needs for mitigation to be reduced, and that is more sustainable and more efficient investment. The UAE is actively contributing to this vision. At COP28, we launched Altera, a 30 billion category fund aimed at mobilizing around $250 billion by 2030. We committed 4.5 billion to Africa's clean energy and contributed around $100 million to the loss and damage fund. These are not isolated purchases. They are templates for how emerging economies like ours can lead on climate justice. As we look ahead to COP30 in Brazil, we encourage all BRICS partners to adapt these frameworks and embed them in national and regional financing architecture, especially since there was a trilateral strategic vision between the UAE, Azerbaijan, and Brazil to uphold the current strategies and lead them forward, because I think longevity in such climate strategies is an important aspect, and not each COP should have its own strategies, its own implementations, and its own frameworks, because that creates conflict and that just keeps everything at a stalemate. I think the UAE is a new member to BRICS, but it's important to mention that the UAE's economic diplomacy is built on three pillars: openness, innovation, and connectivity, which aligns with the BRICS Plus and BRICS vision. Our non-oil trade reached 817 billion with 29 CEPA agreements. I think being a global logistics hub and the top Arab country in the Global Innovation Index is an important factor for BRICS to build on as we supply more trade to global South countries. We see our role as BRICS Plus not as symbolic, but strategic, to serve as a connector, an investor, and a co-creator of shared prosperity for the global South. What comes next? I think we should focus on the movement in COP30 in Belém. And I trust that the Brazilian leadership will do a significant job of moving forward with climate and the climate financing and climate development innovation and frameworks. We must operationalize the Baco Belém roadmap with concrete financing tools, especially for adaptation, and expand BRICS trade through the digital trade facilitation and South-South infrastructure investment, which could be built on climate investment. And third, we must preserve the inclusive, non-confrontational spirit of BRICS. We must not replicate old hierarchies in a new bloc, but instead offer a model of flexibility, pluralism, and cooperation. I'll end by saying BRICS is no longer just a bloc, it's a platform, one that connects all countries, geographies, markets, and development aspirations. And as we build toward COP30, let us do one clear goal in mind: to make finance more fair, trade more inclusive, and development more attainable for every country in the global South, and not just the global South, all around the world, because we're all living on one Earth that needs to be developed in a climate sustainable way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Great insights into the views from the UAE and the focus on a call to action, as you said, not only implementation and not only declaration, but also implementation. And that seems to fit a lot with what Brazil has been saying also in terms of COP30, like the idea of the multi-round, which means in Portuguese, like bringing everybody together to actually put their hands in the dirt to actually get something done, right? So that's very interesting to listen to your perspective. I will call now Victor Matos Vaz. Victor is a career diplomat at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil. He is now currently serving at the Ministry's Division for Climate Action. He's also based here in Brasilia, and he was a delegate to COP28 and 29, focusing on trade and climate, the Paris Agreement's global stocktake and response measures. And Victor is on vacation, and he took some time to be here with us. So thank you very much for doing that, Victor. We're very happy to see you here. And the floor is yours. The screen is yours. We would like to hear your views about the Rio Declaration. Please, you have about 10 minutes.
No, absolutely, Larissa. Thank you so much. I am in so-called vacations, but rest assured I'm not taking too much of my time. This is actually my third meeting, so what does one more do? And I also need to start by apologizing for my rudeness, because once I am done speaking, I will have to jump out of this and into another meeting and just skipping the conversation part of this panel. I was the coordinator for the BRICS contact group on climate change and sustainable development for the Brazilian chairship, and the negotiator for the climate finance outcomes during our BRICS chairship, including what we see as the landmark outcome in the climate area during our chairship, which is the Leaders Framework Declaration on climate finance. And I will be very pleased to share details on our process and rationale for how we address the climate finance within our chairship. And once I leave, I will leave you in very good hands with my colleague Davi, who is the climate finance expert within our team. So when we look at climate finance, today we see that as the main bottleneck for climate action, that is the global stocktake has identified a 5.9 trillion need by 2030 for climate finance for developing countries, and that is just to fulfill the previous round of NGC, so not the current round that is being presented, that you need to be more ambitious than the last one. And that is, of course, against the background of a finance crunch that we are seeing nowadays, with a drawback of ODA around the world, and what has been received as a very underwhelming result for the new collective quantitative goal of only $300 billion per year. That was a result that received some criticism for a few parties. So from the perspective of the Brazilian government, what we have looked at that landscape and asked ourselves, well, what can it be done in terms of practical solutions to reduce that bottleneck and to enhance financing for climate action, so as to make possible an adequate response to climate change in this critical decade. And our response to that was an arc that began in our G20 presidency and went through in our G20 presidency during the work of our task force for a global mobilization against climate change. It went through our activities during COP29. It went through our BRICS chairship, and it will have its culmination in the Baku to Belém roadmap to 1.3 trillion. And that was an attempt to join in all these organizations in a comprehensive and integrated exercise on finding the solutions to make finance available at the scale needed for fighting climate change. And when we come to our BRICS chairship, the question we asked ourselves is, well, what can BRICS do in a way that does not substitute developed countries in their specific responsibilities under the climate regime, but packs a punch, let's say, makes an impact coming from the specific potential that BRICS has, and also approaches the issue of climate finance from a new paradigm of mutual empowerment. And that is, the idea here is, can we fight climate change and can we enhance climate finance by making our economies stronger Is that possible? That's what we have pursued in our BRICS chairship for climate finance. And the result we had there, which is, again, not necessarily the Rio Declaration, which was the omnibus declaration we have adopted on July 7th, but another declaration that we have adopted in the same day, which was the Leaders Framework Declaration on Climate Change, on Climate Finance. It was again a landmark for the BRICS groups, in the sense that it was the first standalone declaration on climate finance, the higher level declaration already adopted on climate finance. And the way it was structured was that it integrated high level political messaging on specific issues with a forward-looking operational framework. Although it's named a declaration, it is perhaps closer to a decision, in the sense that it sets forward a work plan for enhancing climate finance through the so-called cooperation framework for enhancing financing for climate action that I will describe more detail in a few moments. But the scope of that declaration and encompassed all the three dimensions that we have identified for climate finance. There are two dimensions that are a bit overlapping, but are still distinct between themselves. And the first one is, of course, the provision of finance from developed to developing countries. The second one is the mobilization of finance through the use of catalytic instruments to be able to turn billions into trillions, as we have been saying, and to raise private finance from a seat of public finance, for instance. And third, the reform of the global financial architecture, so that we can change its geometry in a way that funds will naturally flow to where they are needed for climate action, and for by ways of mainstreaming climate consideration into the work of prudential authorities of the bank and financial systems. So the Leaders Framework Declaration managed to address these three dimensions in an integrated way. And through this linkage between messaging and an operational framework. And the way it did it, first, it sent a very powerful, let's say, message of calling developed countries to fulfill the responsibilities of providing finance. I think that was one of the aspects of the declaration that was particularly covered in the news. It was a very resounding message that this must be accomplished for the climate process to go forward, but we did not stop there. And perhaps the particular potential of that declaration lies in the two later dimensions. And so first, in terms of mobilization of global finance, our rationale with the declaration was to look at an idea of synergies and scale. That is, as BRICS, we have a gigantic, very significant economic scale, especially when we join our economies together. So the question is, how can we use innovative instruments for mobilizing climate finance in a way that would leverage this economic scale that we have to generate results that are larger than the sum that we could achieve by using these instruments in an isolated, siloed approach. So what is the potential for a collective synergistic use of innovative financial instruments such as blended finance, sustainable taxonomy, sustainable bonds, and so forth within BRICS? And the third one, in terms of the reform of the global financial architecture, that was specifically by promoting a coherent agenda for the reform of these institutions, and particularly multilateral development banks. And here we have, in terms of messaging, a very important message within BRICS of support for the G20 roadmap for bigger, bolder, and multilateral development banks that sets very concrete steps for their reform and for making more climate finance available. But also in terms of pushing both the NDB to do more, both the new development bank to do more, and also coming up with specific ideas to enhance the interaction of the financial ecosystems within BRICS itself, that is, the NDB with vertical funds, with national development banks, with the BRICS interbank mechanism, and with other local and regional banks, and what can be done to make sure that these entities work in a more concerted way to generate, again, bigger outcomes. Where can the potential of one institution complement the others? So, for instance, we have MDBs that can lend at a lower interest rate and have a more long-term horizon for their investments, and how can they work in a way that is synergistic with national development banks that have a regional portfolio and know regional projects and know where their potential lies. So these two messages were very important. Then we come again to the operational aspect, forward-looking aspect of the cooperation framework for enhancing climate financing for climate action. And what it does is to set a 5-year work plan on 14 priority areas for BRICS governments to advance in the next 5 years, and having as horizon very concrete, tangible outcomes. So each year, any advance on these priorities will be reported for the summit itself, and they will be addressed at this ministerial and level. So it was a way to raise the profile of how climate finance is addressed within BRICS and to institutionalize it within a work plan with, again, a very tangible target. So just to give a few examples in areas that are of particular interest to our government, I think for all BRICS governments. So the first will be a work on country platforms and how you can address both mitigation and finance together in platforms that facilitate that presentation of projects to attract international investment. The second is to advance towards the interoperability of sustainable taxonomy, so that the taxonomies that one country established can have a conversation and can translate into what is being done by other countries. Then we will be making a compilation of national experience on financial standards for verification and reporting of sustainable finance, so that again, these taxonomies can be checked against a compilation, a tapestry of experiences that is mutually understandable. And we will be promoting a cooperation between our prudential authorities to assess climate risks for the financial and bank systems, and that's very important in our efforts to reform the global financial architecture, to make sure that climate risks are well integrated into assets and into the profiles of these entities. We will be looking at, again, this was one aspect that was also touched by my previous speakers, but on the idea of pooled guarantees that we can use in larger projects and reducing costs for investment insurance, for currency hedging. We'll be looking at reinforcing the mechanisms for coordination between the new development bank and, again, the whole interaction of the BRICS ecosystem in specific initiatives such as co-financing windows and thematic funds, and we will be establishing an overall dialogue with partners in the Global South beyond BRICS to look at what are the synergies and where can these experiences be leveraged in a way that goes beyond our group. And again, I think the paradigm that we are implementing here, once again, is one of mutual empowerment. These are solutions that are not just, this is not about doing this and mainstreaming climate finance into our economies and coming forward with the use of these instruments and these new institutional arrangements. It's not about charity and it's not about idealism. It is a way to make sure that we make our economies stronger and that we apply climate policy in a way that is also economic good policy. So this is an experience that we hope can be replicated in the Global South and allow us to see this and to have a say and to influence the debate on climate finance in a way that does not substitute developed countries in their responsibilities, also again, which is to provide finance, but allow us to take the leadership in leading the opportunities that will be created by this transition to a low carbon, climate resilient economy. And that is what I had to say. I think this exercise is an interesting source for inspiration in the instruments that put forward for other arrangements, and perhaps also for the roadmap that we will be preparing for COP30. I will now leave you in the hands of my our climate finance expert, Davi Oliveira. And again, thank you so much for the invitation. I was very pleased to be able to speak to CEBRI and to Siemens, and I look forward to continuing this contact in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor. You brought great information to you and great insight to us and great insight into what the view and the rationale was. I'm very impressed about the focus on the operational aspects, which tell a lot to what the commentators, Manat and Mohammed, mentioned before, right? They need to actually see implementation going forward, and the opportunity to eventually give some institutionalization to these efforts so that it can be advanced in other BRICS chairmanships as well. Thank you very much for your contribution to our event. So please just feel free to leave whenever you have to, and we will continue here the discussion. I'll now call to the screen Davi Bonavides, who is the Deputy Head for Climate Negotiation at the Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Davi is serving as a lead negotiator on climate finance since COP28, which was in Dubai, in the UAE. As a career diplomat, he has participated in international negotiations on climate change, biodiversity, sustainable development, space law, and other areas. Davi, thank you for joining us. And I would like to now move into your area of expertise, which is climate finance, and ask you to actually bring us this view on how the Rio Declaration and the BRICS Summit will bring us to COP30. What are your expectations? So, Davi.
Thank you, Larissa. Thank you for the opportunity of participating in this event. It is always good to have this this kind of space to try to think together on where we are and what we must be heading. And it is one of the things that you asked, that is how what is the role of think tanks? I think that the first thing is to provide us with this kind of opportunity to engage with each other and to exchange views, because this is really helpful for us for the formation of our national positions and to identify the key areas where we need to be working on. Regarding the perspective that we have on this topic, I think that the first thing is that we as Brazilians, we recognize that we are still a developing country, and that we do not forget that in our role, both in the G20 presidency and the BRICS presidency, and also on the coming COP30 presidency. We recognize that there's we are living in a very critical decade. The impacts that the IPCC was foreshadowing for the coming future are already being observed. So we are delayed in the actions that we need to take to fight climate change. So this is something that it's really present in our perspective on climate finance, on climate change as a whole. They need to take concrete action, and that is why the COP30 president made this call of a global multi-round, so that we can really make this shift from negotiations to concrete actions on the ground, and also the perspective that it is wiser and cheaper to reduce emissions and to adapt than to deal with the impacts of climate change. In some of the meetings that we had recently, there are some statistics that were very shocking to me. And one of the things that we are always discussing what will be the role of the financial sector in a context of climate change. If the worst scenarios that we are seeing happening, if they are not changed, there will be no financial sector, because the impacts of climate change will be even higher than the impacts of the pandemics that we had. We are seeing already that some areas of important developed countries are in a risk of becoming uninsurable. So if we cannot have insurances for investments, there will be no investments. There will be a very high impact in our economies, in the well-being of our citizens, of our lives as a whole. Not only through the direct impacts of climate change, but also through the economical and financial indirect impacts. So I think that the BRICS declaration, the Rio declaration, touches on very important topics that we need to be addressing. I think, Victor, for the presentation, I will have to repeat several of the messages, because this is how we are operating. We really want to make a connection between the G20, the BRICS, and the COP30, so the messages are intertwined. But I think that one of the points that we raised, and I say we, developing countries during the NCQG negotiations, is that we all need to do our efforts, but we need to respect the international obligations, the international law that we have, the framework that we have in front of us. And one of the things is that that we raised there is that developing countries are doing their part. Not only the emerging markets, the BRICS and BRICS Plus, but all developing countries are doing a lot of efforts to fight climate change. And that comes not only with investments on the ground, but also with the level of indebtedness that developing countries are facing to act on climate change and to deal with the impact and loss and damages of climate change already. So I think that the first thing to recognizing the perspective that we bring to these negotiations is that we are already doing a part that is not in line with the responsibilities that developing countries had in the causes of climate change, but we recognize that this is an effort that must include all actors, and we are doing our part. So we are always encouraging all other actors to also take concrete actions. And I think that the BRICS summit and the BRICS the declaration is an illustration of that we are trying to call on our actors to make a change in the ways that we are behaving in regard to this topic. Looking forward to the COP30, we have two main areas where for climate finance this year. We have the BB13, the Baku to Belém roadmap to 1.3 trillion. I think that in a way this is a more it is the spotlight of the debates in general, but it is not a negotiated document. It's a report that we received the mandate to prepare a report with our colleagues from COP29 on ways to reach the 1.3 trillion. And I think that our colleague Mohammed and Manatol also spoke to the insufficiency of the numbers that we have in front of us. Reaching 1.3 trillion would be a very important milestone, but we have to look at the necessities of developing countries, the needs that are already identified, and the needs that are not yet identified. So this is a number that it's the goal that we have now, but we should not be ruled by these numbers. We have to think on the reality of people's, on the real needs on the ground. But anyway, we hope to build upon the lessons that we had from the G20 and the BRICS processes in the construction of the roadmap. One of those things that we saw is that, and this is very deeply rooted in the perspective of COP30 and our team, is that we need to engage different actors. We need to move beyond the negotiations. And I think that this will be reflected in the roadmap. We hope that to reflect this. But there are several topics that we want to address in the roadmap. This is not something really new. These are topics that were already in the debates of the NCQG. They were already in the G20 and the BRICS declaration. But we want to make a collection of those actions that were already identified on ways to unlock climate finance. I would mention some of those topics here, which are perhaps the most important, which is the need to address the cost of capital of climate finance for developing countries. And I think it was Enrique who mentioned, or Enrique or Mohammed, who mentioned that the need for fairness in climate finance. And when we see the impacts of the cost of capital in the most vulnerable countries, this is something that really speaks to the lack of fairness in climate finance, because the more you are vulnerable for climate impacts, the more you need that finance, the more expensive it will be. Because the fact that you are vulnerable in the eyes of the markets, the regulators, means that you have a lesser chance to pay those debts. So the price will be higher. We need to address this, the cost of capital, and also something that speaks to that is the inclusion of climate risks in financial assessments, but not only the inclusion of climate risks itself, but the risks of inaction. Because in a way, the private sector is already moving in that direction of including climate risks in their assessments, but this is usually this is done in a way to protect the investment, which is of course expected. But we also need to think on ways to change the how we see the risks, how we include the risk of not investing in energy transition, in just transitions, in adaptation. We had a very concrete example here in Brazil, in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which it would have been much cheaper to invest in adaptation than to deal with the impacts of the flood that we had there, not only in terms of economical losses, but also in terms of the lives of the people that were lost in that tragedy. So the inclusion of this kind of evaluation is really important on the way that we need to change how the financial sector reacts and how the financial sector prevents other situations like that. We need to address prudential rules, as mentioned by Victor, specifically to include those kind of assessments. And all of this speaks to also to the debt crisis in developing countries. Some developing countries are already investing 5 to 7% of their GDP in dealing with climate change impacts. So the level of indebtedness that we see today, it's a bottleneck to the climate action, to the level of ambition that we need to have to reach the 1.5 degree goal. So if we do not tackle the debt crisis in developing countries, we will not have the power that we need to face this challenge. Finally, we also need to speak about access, because the way we see the system today, even the resources that we have to deal with climate change, they are not set in a way that they are not reaching the final destination. They are not reaching the projects on the ground. So we need to think on ways to improve access to those resources, and also to see how to integrate innovative tools in our set of measures that we need to use in this endeavor. And I would mention debt swaps, blended finance, first loss instruments, and so on. And finally, the last topic that I will mention that we want to address in the Pakuti Belém report, and it is something that really speaks to the work of the BRICS and the G20, is the reform of the international financial architecture and the reform of the MDBs. We have an understanding that is really rooted in our position that as much as we recognize the importance of the negotiations under the UNFCCC, and you will see that in the letters of the COP30 president, one of the key principles that is guiding our actions is to protect the multilateral system. So we really think that the UNFCCC has a key role to play in this debate, but we also recognize that we need to go beyond that, especially when we are talking about climate finance. The changes that we need to really unlock climate finance, they are almost everyone, every single one in other forums. So we need to be speaking to the international financial system, with the Basel Committee, with the World Bank, the IMF, and multilateral development banks. So those messages from the BB13 and from the negotiations as a whole, they need to be addressed to those that are outside the climate change system. We really need to speak to those actors that are in a position to debate and to take those actions that will really change the financial system in a way that it's fit for purpose for the climate change objectives. I would mention finally one of another topic that we have in front of us for COP30, which is the debates on Article 21C, which is the article that speaks to the alignment of financial flows to the objectives of the Paris Agreement. And I mentioned this because, as I said before, the BB13 is not a negotiated outcome. So it will depend on how parties will react to this and how they will take these messages forward. But we have in front of us the debates on the Article 21C, which is, we have a mandate that it's ending this year, the mandate for the Sharm el-Sheikh dialogue on the implementation of 21C. And we need to decide how would be the future implementation of this important article. We hope that this debate will also bring this kind of perspective of speaking to the broader community, to the financial system as a whole, and to include different actors, and to really focus on on structural reforms that will make a change in the environment that we have for climate finance. So I think that the more encompassing message is that we need to burst the bubble of climate change, of climate finance, and really engage with actors outside the framework of the UNFCCC. So I'll stop here and
Thank you.
We have time for a question.
Thank you, Davi. We are also all learning a lot from your comments here. Thank you for sharing all this impressive data. And as you said, indeed, Brazil has been a very important testimony to the decisions made in whether to address or not the climate change adaptations. I am myself from Rio Grande do Sul, so I am personally touched about what happened there. So I think we have lots of lessons learned, and we actually hope that moving forward, we also take some of these lessons into consideration. I will now go into a new round of questions to our panelists, and we are going to end the event in about 20 minutes from now. So I have a couple of questions that we gathered from the audience that I would like to share. So I'll start with Mohammed. Mohammed, can you please tell us a bit more, also in light of what we just heard from Vitor and Davi on the importance of finding financial solutions to facing the challenges of climate change. What is the contribution, Mohammed, that you see the Gulf region can bring to shaping the BRICS priorities, but especially this one with regards to financing sustainable development? You did mention the Altera Fund, and if you can develop a little bit more on that, that would be excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. Thank you for the question. Like, from the perspective of the United Arab Emirates, I cannot speak on the Gulf region as a whole, as currently the only member of BRICS is the United Arab Emirates, but there is cooperation between the Gulf region through the GCC, with economic diversification plans and strategies. The UAE was a hydrocarbon economy, but has diversified and has successfully diversified its economy throughout the years. And adding on to what Davi said, like, we stand today at a pivotal juncture and multilateral climate financing and development. We had the outcomes of COP28, the structured financial agenda developed at COP29 in Baku. And I think now we have the opportunity for implementation and scaling in Brazil in COP30 in Billion. I mean, these three presidencies have made a trilateral cooperation that creates an arc of climate responsibility. And within that arc, we believe that BRICS countries, especially under Brazil's leadership and the declarations made through the BRICS summit, can play a transformative role. I'd like to talk about the UAE's role and legacy as like financial investment, climate investments. Like, let me first reflect on what was built on COP28. As you mentioned, there was the Altera Fund, which is a 30 billion Catholic fund designed to mobilize $250 billion by 2030 in climate finance. A lot of that financing started with an announced 4.5 billion to help develop clean energy infrastructure across Africa. And we led the first global stocktake, which reaffirmed the need for urgent action and decarbonization, financing, and adaptation. All these initiatives are not just like UAE-centric. They were designed to be scalable blueprints for others to build upon. And as we see Brazil as a natural next partner to take these solutions forward and localize them to the context of Latin America and the global South. Talking about the Gulf region, the UAE was successfully, I wouldn't say decarbonized. We still prioritize hydrocarbons and selling of oil as members of OPEC, but also we have a lot of strategies for climate financing, a lot of initiatives all around the world. So I think taking this forward, the UAE could, for green growth, at the heart of the UAE's approach is a clear principle. Economic competitiveness and sustainability are not mutually exclusive. They are mutually reinforcing. So we have our net zero 2050 strategy, which includes over 600 dirhams of 600 billion dirhams in planned investment in renewable energy and green infrastructure. The UAE has committed more than 70 billion in global development assistance, much of it directed toward energy access, climate resilience, and infrastructure across Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. And I think we should also focus more, and there is a trajectory to focus more on also South America and Latin America. We're also the first MENA country to host the COP. Actually, no, the COP was in Egypt before us. So during COP28, we demonstrated that even resource-based economies can lead global sustainability agenda. We faced a lot of criticisms, being resource-based, hydrocarbon-based economy, but we proved that through hydrocarbon revenue, we can reinforce climate financing, and I think that is the move forward through government, private, public partnerships. That is a move forward for a lot of developing countries. As we see, a lot of developing countries, a lot of emerging countries are resource-based. You need resources to build your economy. So you cannot have financial liquidity just out of the current state of climate financing and climate infrastructure. Solar energy is a big move. Also, like hydro energy is a big wave for financing, but a lot of resources need to be used. A lot of countries have natural resources, critical minerals that need to be mined. Maybe we can figure out sustainable ways to mine it that wouldn't hurt the environment as much, and that would allow us to mitigate and adapt climate financing into more sectors as well. In talking more about trade and logistics, I think that is a pivotal point for the UAE moving forward and enabling climate projects. The UAE is home to Jebel Ali Port, one of the world's top 10 busiest ports, and Khalifa Port, the most advanced in the region. And we have established a hyper-connected logistics corridor linking East Africa, the Gulf, South Asia, and Europe, including through partnerships that hopefully are more built upon, which is the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC. These trade routes are now being optimized not just for efficiency, but for sustainability. Electrified container handling, smart custom systems, hydrogen-ready port infrastructure. As we can see, the agreement signed on the IMEC didn't focus only on trade routes and logistical corridors. Part of it was also building hydrogen corridors which allow better climate trade and better climate finance. By making trade greener, the UAE is facilitating low emission value chains for the entire global south. Talking more about being a capital mobilizer, you asked about the private, how the UAE can use its finances, liquidity to mobilize climate financing around the world. We talked about the Altera Fund, but there are also a lot of private companies or funds that have been mobilized to invest in green projects all over the world. We have ADQ, Mubadala, and Masdar, our leading sovereign and clean energy investors. They're active in over 40 countries, financing solar, wind, and hydrogen projects from Uzbekistan to Egypt to Indonesia. The Abu Dhabi Fund also for development has financed over 20 billion in green and infrastructure projects, including mini grids, desalination plants, and smart cities. And one great example looking forward on how climate financing and green energy can move forward with the boom in tech, with the expansion in tech and AI. The UAE signed an agreement to build a data center in Kenya using geothermal energy, which is a great plan. And if it went successfully, that could allow us to build a more sustainable and climate-friendly data centers. As we know, they use a lot of water, they use a lot of energy, and they could be detrimental to the climate, but through finding innovative solutions like using geothermal energy and green energy and desalination plants to help cool down the data centers, we could build a better path for the future as there is more focus and investments to AI. And if it is cost efficient, we could drive more private investments into building greener energy for AI. I think these are just some of the points of how the UAE is moving forward, and also the Gulf region through their visions moving forward to mobilizing climate financing, adaptation, and mitigation throughout the world. So I hope that was a brief and good answer to your question. Thank you.
It was a great answer, Mohammed. Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing us this concrete cases as well, which were very helpful for us to see how, in the end, like once capital is mobilized, where can it go to, right? What's the role that technology can play together with capital to actually solve problems? Thank you. I'll now call Manat. And Manat, we have a question here from the audience that I think could be answered by you. And the question is, how do Rio's declaration, so the declaration for the BRICS summit, environmental goals, how these environmental goals in the declaration intersect with the group's geopolitical objectives, particularly in challenging existing power structures?
Right. Well, that's a very complex question to answer.
I know. I'm sorry about that. Maybe you can focus in one part of it.
Okay, I'll try my best. So I think how I'd answer that is, firstly, BRICS is not unlike the G20 or BRICS is, I think, more of a very more than geopolitical. I think the objective is very much aligned to economic cooperation, right? That was very much the foundation of why BRICS was put together. It was more strategic, it was more economic, it was more trade facilitation. And now, of course, the ambit has expanded over the years, given the different challenges in the geopolitical landscape that we find ourselves in. So how I would link environment and geopolitics is that today, if you look at any foreign policy conversation that we have, energy, climate is an extremely crucial part of that conversation. Whether we look at the IMEC, which originated in India's G20 presidency 2 years ago, it started out as a very geopolitical, cooperation-centric, strategic, security-led conversation, to now being more trade facilitation, infrastructure corridor, trade and connectivity, and then now, of course, more to do with sustainable trade and connectivity, sustainable energy corridors, etc. So I think the fact that foreign policy today, or if you just look at Trump's visit to the Gulf, right, data centers and sustainable energy and nuclear energy was a big part of that conversation as well. So I think today, any foreign policy conversation is not separate or distant from conversations on energy, environment, sustainability, and climate. They're very, very enmeshed in broader strategic geopolitical conversations that we find ourselves in. And the biggest example is CBAM, right? The Europe's carbon border adjustment mechanism, which has implications today on every geopolitical or bilateral or multilateral conversation that we have on trade, that we have on bilateral relationships or multilateral relationships as well. So I wouldn't say today climate and environment is distant from foreign policy. It's very much integrated and is rather being used as a tool to strengthen relationships as well. Now, even though India, even if I were to say US and China, given their very contentious relationship, they still, you will still find that that there is no impact on trade, and particularly to that great extent. Even if you look at, for example, India and China, which doesn't always have a very where there have been certain concerns politically or on the border, there still seems to be cooperation when it comes to trade facilitation, etc. And there, or in these multilateral forums or these cooperation, whether it's at the BRICS, whether it's at the COP, whether it's at the G20 level, there is agreement to cooperate and collaborate on energy, on biodiversity, on the environment. So I think rather today, energy and climate action and biodiversity and sustainability are becoming tools to strengthen bilateral cooperation, in my opinion. Hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you for sharing your views, Manat. And as we approach the end of the event, I would like to ask a last question to Davi. And Davi, I would like to hear some final considerations on your side on how do you or does the team plan to move forward now? As you described to us, there is a very aligned view that connects the G20 with the BRICS and the COP30 coming forward. So how do you think that this interaction can move on with the months that we have ahead of us before COP30, and also the fact that the Brazilian presidency will last still for months after the actual COP30 meeting takes place, right? So what are the main ideas in terms of engagement that you think that would be used by Brazil in order to make sure that the implementation goals will move forward? Like, are there challenges to keep this communication going? Because every time there's a summit, there is momentum, and that's very good for new agreements to be established. But how do you see the next steps?
Thank you, Larissa. Thank you for the question. I would say that we have some important milestones ahead of us until we get to Belém. The head of our team, Ambassador Lilian, is right now in Azerbaijan for a heads of delegation meeting. And one of the topics that is going to be discussed there is the Baku to Belém roadmap, and also adaptation, including finance for adaptation. So right now we are in a very high level meeting with our partners, including all countries from all heads of delegations from the UNFCCC. After that, we will have the African Climate Week in September. I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the first week of September, which would be also an important environment for us to discuss with other parties and to make progress on the negotiations already in a more informal setting, but already looking forward for COP30. We are planning a notification to all parties and observers on a new round of submissions on the Baku to Belém roadmap. So we are finalizing the questions that will be presented to the parties and observers. So this also will be an opportunity to hear different voices on the messages that should be included in the roadmap. After that, we have also the SCF meeting in Rome, also in the first half of September. I think it's from the 11th to the 15th. And then the pre-COP here in Brasilia in October. So these are important meetings that we'll have in a more, in different settings, but in a general sense, in a more informal setting, except from the SCF meeting, of course. But these are important windows for us to be together and to explore ways to speak directly to one another, and also to hear from the observers, think tanks, and everyone on messages that should be included. So there's a lot of work to do before COP30. There's also the second workshop of the Sharm el-Sheikh dialogue on the 2:1C, which is also in September. So September will be a very busy month, and this is all before the meeting of the General Assembly in New York, which is also an important opportunity. We'll have the New York Climate Week there. I believe that the CPD will be there, the president designated of COP30, Ambassador André Corrêa do Lago, and we will have important meetings in New York too. So there won't be, for lack of meetings, that we will won't reach decisions in COP30. We are confident that these decisions will be reached, will be unlocked, and we hope to have the best outcomes possible. But of course, we are very aware that this is not up to the Brazilian presidency. We stated several times in the bond sessions that we really want to see this as a party-driven process. There are several concerns from developing country parties about the way the process is being taken in the past years, and that it needs to really be a party-driven process. And I refer specifically to our colleagues from India, which were very concerned with the adoption of the NCQG decision. But in a way, it's not up to us. We will do our best to guide the process, but we depend on the engagement from all parties. We saw in the bond sessions that we had a rough start with the adoption of the agenda, but when the work really began, we had a quite positive results from the meeting, with the adoption of draft text to be sent to the COP on key important topics such as adaptation, just transition, the GST, and so on. So even though we had this difficult start in the SP's meeting, parties were able to find the common ground to send the text to the COP30. So we are very confident that we will have some strong results to collectively present to the general public.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Davi. And really, indeed, you have months of lots of meetings and a lot of work for the until COP30 actually takes place. And thank you for doing all these efforts, because in the end, each presidency is the work of, you know, the whole structure of public servants and diplomats of a country. But in the end, it's a work that tries to find solutions for the whole of the world society. So thank you for focusing so much on these issues. And we were very happy that you still found time to join us, even with this very busy schedule from what just took place to the months ahead. And best of luck in these initiatives that you'll be having in the meetings in the coming months. We will be following as much as we can, and if as think tanks we can give concrete contributions to these efforts, we will be always willing to host convenings and conversations, and can help support this policymakers and civil servants doing a lot of this technical and practical work. Well, we're now coming to the end of this session, and we'll have some closing remarks by Henrique and myself. I'll let Henrique start, and then I will close the meeting with a few words as well. Henrique, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Larissa. Thank you, everybody. So I think what we can wrap up on this is the really need on financing, and that how problem this is, and the problem that can be solved on if we arrange a way that we can really finance the underdevelopment world and the global south on climate change. And the technologies are already there, they're just waiting to be implemented. So but one thing that I was very happy is that to listen from the Brazilian ambassadors that we really did a journey with the B20, with the COP30, and I hope that BRICS in the next year kind of like continue this agenda for us to do not have like a lot of initiatives and less things that goes to an end and reach out a goal that was previously expected. So I'm really looking forward to have more things that we can come here next year and say, well, we continue to do this, we are aligned, and we are going forward into this. So thank you again. Thank you all for the participation. Really happy for the discussion, and I hope to see you, some of you, at COP30 in November.
Excellent. Thank you, Henrique. And I would like to say that this was a group established within CEBRI for the past few months to work on the BRICS issues. But CEBRI has been also very actively working on issues related to energy transition and sustainable development overall. It is also very much involved in the COP30 discussions, organizing a lot of meetings. So it might be that you also receive invitations from our side to join other conversations about that. And I'm very glad that this one was able to bring together the results of both the Rio Declaration and the BRICS Summit, as well as a vision to where we want to go in terms of COP30, especially in what concerns the most important topic for all of us, which is climate finance, and how we're going to untap these resources and create instruments that might mobilize private capital. Because in the end, as we learned, governments are also in a difficult fiscal situation. So expect governments to be leading these initiatives will not be a very realistic expectation. So it's really about how to use the BRICS and the economies of the BRICS to help mobilize also the private capital present in the productive capital present in these countries to find solutions to very concrete problems that we're all facing. I have to personally say a thank you note for CEBRI for establishing this group, and for Siemens Energy to joining us, being a partner with us in this idea. This is, as I said in the beginning, the third event that we're having together. And I have to say a big thanks to all the team behind all these initiatives that has been working a lot to bring together relevant speakers, sharing with the Brazilian and international audience relevant ideas that are like from different voices, from voices that we're not hearing every day, especially here in Brazil. And we're very happy to have these different perspectives and really see that there is a lot that we can be doing together, although it's very challenging. I really liked what Mohammed said in the beginning about his recent experience in coming to Brazil for the BRICS think tank meeting, and how that also brings a whole new array of ideas and opportunities about potential cooperation between the different country members and the actual societies that are behind these countries, like that actually make these countries. So I think it has been a great learning journey for myself and for the team behind this project. And I'm very happy that we are able to close this with this very productive conversation where I learned a lot. I actually have 7 pages of notes that I was typing while each of you were speaking. So thank you for your contributions, and we'll end the event here. Hoping to, as Henrique said, seeing you maybe in the coming meetings described by Davi, but maybe at COP30. See you around. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye. Take
Ciao,
care.
ciao.
Ciao.